Hello, welcome to Around Town with Rotary. My name is Mike Harrington, and this monthly show is a chance for us to tell everybody around town all about the men and women of the Beverly Rotary Club. The Beverly Rotary Club has been around for over 100 years now. We have over 100 members, and each of them are talented, interesting people from all different types of professions, and we have a chance to highlight them every month and bring somebody interesting on the show. I'd like to introduce my co-host, Al Temkin, and Al will introduce today's special guest. Go ahead, Al.
Thank you, Mike. It's my pleasure to introduce Carlos Robledo to our show here today. Carlos, I'm very anxious and very interested to hear about you and your background and what brought you to where you are today. So before we get into your career and your work with Rotary, let's talk a little bit about your upbringing. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? That kind of thing, please.
Yeah, thank you both, Mike and Al, for the opportunity. I'm Carlos Robledo. I was born and raised in Colombia, and I went to high school down there. Right after high school, I decided that I wanted to learn English, and I actually applied for a youth exchange program. At the very last minute, the family I was supposed to stay with backed out for some health reasons. So I ended up coming actually to an English as a second language study center at Hamline University in Minneapolis, St. Paul area. So that's how I got into the United States. That was in the early 80s. I'm dating myself, but I went through a year of studying English as a second language. Then I decided that I liked the American culture. I wanted to stay here for college and applied to several few schools, and I went to college at Marquette University and got a degree in electrical engineering and computer science. And then off I went. You know, I got my first job right after that in the late 80s and built a life here in the U.S. as well as international, because I went back to Colombia and Latin America for a few years in between.
So you got a degree in electrical science, and you're now a photographer. So at some point we're going to get into how that transition happened, and I know some big things are happening with you right now. But just one real quick question. You grew up, I think you said, in Colombia. Tell us just a little bit about how was it growing up in Colombia versus what you now know of the United States?
You know, growing up in Colombia, I grew up in a middle-income family with, with all the resources, but not in excess. And my father was an entrepreneur. He had his own business. He owned a company that supplied tools and items for the construction industry down there. So in my summers, I used to go work for him. And his clients were from carpenters to large construction companies. And I had the opportunity to kind of through that to get to know the importance of personal relationships. And even though I went to school for an engineering degree, I've always gravitated towards the business side, probably because of that upbringing, because I was, my father brought me up to be, outgoing and socialized to my local community members. So it was when I left Colombia, unfortunately, that was the years where there was a lot of violence through the drug cartels and guerrilla warfare and stuff. And unfortunately, some years after that, after I came to the United States, things settled down. The company elected a good president, and things were under control. But it was an exciting time. It was I went to a Catholic high school, and with I get the upbringing of boys and girls, and having the quinceañeras parties when our lady friends, our girlfriends were coming of age, and it was a very fun time. So I got very, very fond memories of growing up in Colombia, but also excellent memories of my transition to life in the U.S.
Sure.
Great. Well, right now you're a photographer. We're going to talk quite a bit about your business here today in this show. But before we do that, let's highlight some of the stuff you did. I know you had a very busy, successful career before you get into photography. Can you highlight a little bit about your earlier career, some of the companies you worked for, and some of the roles you had?
Yes, absolutely. So my first job actually, as I was going through college, I did an internship program, and my first job was with SMD North American Philips. It was a company that built reduced size computer chips for the first IBM PCs and Apple Macintoshes that came out, like I said, in the mid to late 80s. I had a job running and programming, prototyping for the engineering team, and I reported directly to the chief of engineering. And it was great. I learned a lot, did a lot of programming, and gave me the opportunity to be in touch with a lot of customers, a lot of clients that came that were thinking about ordering miniaturized computer chips from this company. I was in the demo room showing them how we would run that through the process, the manufacturing process and the testing process. I specifically run the testing computer software for that. But I guess through that process, while I'm enamored of the technology, I'm a techie guy, but I like more working with people. So I quickly transitioned to business and sales roles in the companies that I worked after that. So I worked for a software company in Connecticut right after that, right after graduated from college. Then I went to Colombia. At the time, I was on a work visa here, so my work visa expired. I went to Colombia. I knew the industry, so I got a few representations of a company like Adobe, like AutoCAD, like Lotus back in the day, WordPerfect, all these companies that did the early programs of, word processing, Excel, spreadsheets and all that. And I started my own business actually in Colombia, representing and selling those companies to large organizations. To multinationals in Colombia, like the Colgate-Palmolives, the Gillettes, the Procter & Gamble's, you name it. And while I was down there, a great North American company came and opened a subsidiary in Colombia, Microsoft. And a friend of mine got hired as the VP of sales for Microsoft. I said, Carlos, you'd be great here. Why don't you just leave your business aside? I said, Jose, I can't do that. I've invested all this effort. I was 5 years into it at that point. I got a team and all that. And I said, I'll help you find a buyer so you can work for us. Your future at Microsoft is great. So after a year and a half of talks, I actually ended up selling my business to another local software company. I went to work for Microsoft, became an employee. And I ran sales for most of the country. I opened sales offices and all that. And through Microsoft, I came back to the U.S. After that, I worked with other companies, Indian companies, Israeli companies that are big in the IT services, as well as software development. I worked for companies who did field service software for managing technicians that go out in the field to service, our Comcast, our natural gas and things like that. And later in my career, I worked with companies in the data analytics and AI space. Again, my job most of the time was to sell software to large companies, but because a lot of these programs are so complex and involved multiple parties to make it work, I became sort of an expert in building strategic alliances and partnership with industry partners.
Well, you know what, Carlos, it sounds like we could probably sit here for the rest of the week and listening to all of the things that you've been involved with, which are just very exciting and very interesting. But in the essence of time, I want to ask you the next question. Tell us, I'm going to break away from career for just a minute. Tell us about your family.
Well, I'm married to my wife, Angela. She's a physician here in the North Shore, works at Leahy Health. We have no children, but we have two two dogs that are furry children, if you will. We live here in Beverly. We've been in Beverly for about 13 years, and we love the community. One of the great things about being in Rotary is allowed me to really get to know my local community, which I barely knew in passing before becoming a Rotarian in the last year or so. So,
what was it how did you get to Beverly?
We had we wanted to, before we moved to Beverly, we were in Wayland, so in Metro West.
Yeah.
And we owned a boat that we kept in Marina Bay and kept sailing just about every weekend to the North Shore. So we said, we want to find a home near the water in the North Shore. And during one weekend drive, we found a new development in town. We ended up purchasing a lot and built a house 13 years ago.
Good for you.
And we love it here.
That's terrific. Well, hey, tell us about Rotary. You mentioned Rotary. We're delighted to have you into the club as a relatively new member. How did you discover Rotary, and how did you get involved?
Well, Rotary, as we all know, is an international organization. So I knew of Rotary back from my childhood days in Colombia. My uncle, actually, he was the Minister of Education in Colombia at some point during one of those presidencies, and he was also the president of the local Rotarian club in Colombia. So I knew of Rotary quite well. The other reason why I know Rotary is, I suffered polio when I was a child, and Rotary has been a big champion for vaccination and cure of polio worldwide. So even though I acquired polio before it became one of Rotary's charters, it just became it stuck in my mind that Rotary strives for a cure for something that I suffered in my early childhood, and I wanted to be part of it. I enjoy sort of being affiliated with an organization that where takes service above self, that is about giving back to the community, and I just align with the Rotary mission. So when somebody here in Beverly that I met through actually the Greater Beverly Chamber of Commerce said, hey, I'd love to bring you as a guest to one of the Rotary luncheons, I gladly accepted, and that's how I became a Rotarian.
Well, that's terrific. So when exactly did you launch your photography business? How long has it been since you started doing that as your primary focus?
So I left my corporate job at the end of 2023, and I knew I wanted to, I've been a photographer for quite a bit, since 2005, 2007. I started photography as a stress reliever for my corporate, forcing me to go out and do something.
Kind of a hobby
type of thing, right? I used to travel quite a bit in my corporate job, and I find myself, at night in a city that I didn't know, twinkling my fingers. And I'm not the type of guy who's going to go sit at a bar and drinks and find people they don't know, but rather I said, I want to know these places. So I really became really interested in night photography, and I practiced my night photography during my business trips. After my business dinners were done at 8:30, 9 p.m., I would just come back to the hotel, change to comfortable clothes and shoes, and just walk the city downtown where I was, and I would just take pictures and capture the moment. So that's how I get started.
Well, that's terrific. That's terrific. Hey, folks at home, Carlos mentioned that the Rotary Club is very involved in all different types of charitable and philanthropic giving. Why don't you take a couple of minutes here at the break, just watch a 2 or 3 minute video that talks about some of the projects and areas that Rotary has been working in recent years. We'll catch you back on the other side in a moment. Thank you.
We raise a lot of money for Beverly organizations.
And they bought us our refrigerated van.
They made a significant contribution to the restoration of Ellis Square.
They helped us house a family experiencing homelessness.
They bought us our bookmobile.
They were actually the first ones to donate instruments to the high school band.
They bought oxygen masks for our rescue dogs.
They helped buy our school bus.
They fund the annual Brad Gage Ice Cream Social at Lynch Park every summer, and they even scoop the ice cream.
Since 2014, they've supported the Cabot, funding preservation of this historic gem.
They helped to fund the Council on Aging van.
They were a major donor to our new infant toddler playground. They bought an emergency generator for Harbor Lighthouse.
We funded and built the gazebo.
And we've got a green thumb.
A lot of green thumbs.
A lot of green thumbs.
Not to mention sculptures.
We planted more than 100 trees last year.
They donated a shuttle bus stop that brings veterans to the VA hospital in Bedford.
We're going to buy a water drone to clean plastics out of Beverly Harbor.
They make a big difference for United Way.
We give up to 8 scholarships.
8 scholarships every year since the mid-1980s.
And I was a recipient, and thanks to their help, I was the first in my family to go to college.
It's more than just a local organization.
There are 33,000 clubs
in 200 countries with 1.2 million members worldwide.
All that good adds up.
Those do-gooders just keep doing good.
We funded 13 wells in Kisumu, Kenya, bringing water to 13 schools.
We contributed to Kalusha School in Pakistan, and later to the construction of a fabulous women's college.
Hi, I'm Izzy Polito. I'm Mirabella Polito. I'm Andrea Polito. And we're all youth exchange students.
We started the youth exchange program 13 years ago, partly because I was also an exchange student in 1979.
I'm Aku. I'm from Finland. They hosted me as exchange student.
We funded Dr. Gordon Sato of Hamilton, who devised a way to grow trees in salt water in Senegal, Mauritania, and Eritrea.
Our club has funded at least 20 life-changing surgeries around the world.
And we've participated as non-medical volunteers
in the Philippines,
in Bolivia,
and Venezuela.
And remember,
since launching the Polio Plus campaign over 30 years ago, the number of polio cases worldwide has dropped 99%.
In 2019, clubs in the district joined the Polar Plunge to eradicate polio. The clubs raised $90,000. Can we get back to Beverly, please?
Over the past 10 years, we've raised, probably about $100,000. Try $400,000.
Over the past 10 years, we've raised over $1 million.
I have made some wonderful friends.
It's downright inspiring.
It's an important part of my week.
It's a very important part of my week.
Sometimes it's the best part of my week.
It's one of the best things I do.
Even if people still ask about the secret handshake.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the video. Again, thank you so much. We're here with our guest, Carlos Robledo. And if you've had an opportunity to listen to the first part of our program, this is one interesting man. He's had an interesting background, and I'm just really enjoying learning about you and how you became who you've become. So let's talk a little bit about the headshot business, which I think is primarily what you're doing. Is that fair to say that?
Yeah, it's fair. It's my primary occupation right now, although I do some consulting on the side.
Okay.
That keeps my schedule full, but yes,
right.
that's...
And let's bring that headshot up, let's bring that logo up, I'm sorry, so we can look at that while we're asking the question. Well, in your opinion, Carlos, with your experience, why are headshots so important?
Well, like I was saying earlier, most of my career was in the sales and business development side of technology, and I know how important first impression is. Oftentimes, I was calling on higher decision makers that would normally not give me the time of day if it wasn't for a good close contact introduction, and they would see myself as a valid person to have a conversation with. And some of that first impressions come across through great images, also through great connections. Since I've been a photographer for so many years as a hobbyist and as a very serious amateur photographer, I decided that one way to combine my people skills, my business development skills, would be to start catering to a lot of my corporate friends and network through photography. And I do that through taking headshots of individuals, taking portraits and headshots of corporate teams, and photographing at corporate events, whether it's gala receptions or product launches or sales kickoff meetings, those type of things.
You know what, while we're talking, Chris, why don't we bring up some of those headshots and let's just kind of walk us through, in a couple of cases, what you see and how you think, for example, this young lady here, how is this headshot, how is this important to her?
Well, this is a young lady that is trying to make her first impression. She's starting early in her career, and she wants to make a good self-image because she caters to, I think this particular woman, she's in the creative industry, and she actually is looking to get into, she's a model and she's trying to get into acting as well. So for her, it was really important to get a proper, a series of headshots that would portray her approachable, confident, charming. What she told me when I was preparing her for the interview was, sometimes it's difficult for people to take me serious because I'm beautiful. People see me as a beautiful woman.
Al has that problem.
Yeah, it's. I understand where she's coming from. Yes,
but so I wanted to make me look like like I'm thoughtful, like I'm a person that is interesting. Help other people see me past my beauty. So part of my job as a photographer is extract those characteristics from the individual that will help them portray the message to their audience. In this case, the audience may be talent recruiters, maybe model agencies.
Sure.
Things like that.
Let's just take a peek at the next. Do you have another one there, Chris, so we can kind of talk about it a little bit? Tell us about this. Now, it's interesting. Just looking at this picture, to me, I don't know this guy, but to me, he is someone that looks to me like you could engage in a very interesting conversation with this guy because he just looks very bright and he looks very confident, I would say. Would you agree?
He's the chief. When I took this photograph, he was the chief marketing officer for a technology company here in the area, in the Boston area. And obviously his company they had just gone through a website refresh and they had taken great pictures of their products, but their people images were all over the place, were scattered. Some people were, headshots cut out from wedding photos. Some other people were headshots or photographs from when they were hiking in the White Mountains or what have you. So he said, I want you to take a great picture of me that will allow us to replicate this image through our executive suite, but also will set the tone for how we want our employees to look in front of their customers. So obviously, because he deals with customers and vendors all the time, he wants to be, approachable, confident, trustworthy, a good representative of his company.
Well, I think you accomplished that. I mean, that was just my first impression. I obviously don't know who this guy is, but it looks to me like somebody I'd want to sit and have a beer with. I think he'd be an interesting guy. It's either him or Mike. I think I prefer.
There you go.
Not me.
Same characteristic. Well, as we talked about, this is a little bit of an art form, and I bet part of the challenge is to get people comfortable when you take in the picture. What are some things you do to kind of get them in the right frame of mind so that they can really get the best possible headshot?
I think a key thing to get a good headshot or a good portrait is to have the person feel relaxed without telling them relax. Nobody does really relax. You tense up already. So what am I doing wrong that I'm
it's like when you say to your spouse, hey, relax. So it's going to get the opposite result.
Right. So the first thing, as soon as they come into my studio, I just have a quick 5-10 minute conversation. Depending on the type of shoots, I interview them by phone or by Zoom ahead of time. But I would say probably 75% they just call, they just book an appointment. We just spend the first few minutes. They answer some questions during the booking process that helps me learn about them a little bit more. But it's trying to get the vibe, getting to read.
Sure.
Do they feel nervous? Are they a talker? Are they an introvert? Do they have any facial features that I want to highlight or that I want to minimize? Right? And I ask them usually, do you have a favorite side to your face? Some people do, some other people said, I look good all over. So I agree for you.
That's great.
So it's about having that initial conversation, getting to know where that person is coming from, and then giving them prompts during the photo session so I create a natural expression. So a lot of these pictures that you see, I tell them things that make them laugh, but I don't take the picture just when they're laughing. I take the pictures when when the laugh is coming down, because our most pleasant smile is when the mouth relaxes after a big laugh. So it's timing that moment after I tell something that makes them relax, and they just be themselves.
That's awesome. Well, it sounds like you've done a great job getting the best possible results with these folks, and there's a real science behind it, and you've mastered that. Hey, we've talked about the headshots. What other types of services do you offer? Can you take just a couple of moments to talk about that?
Yeah, I started with headshots, but I just moved to a new space, a much larger space, at the 100 building in the Cummings Center here in Beverly. And that's allowing me to expand to other services. So I'm doing a lot more studio work for teams, and I want to do studio portraits for families as well. I think there is a lot of people who, tend to take their family photos in the fall when they're going to send out their Christmas cards, and then great hire photographer, they go to Lynch Park or they go to somewhere in the North Shore. But I'm trying to start creating more memory pieces for families that we'll be able to treasure over time. I'm actually going to start a project next year about celebration of life with older folks. I've had experience with my own grandparents and stuff, that sometimes we didn't, even with my father who passed at a relatively early age, that we didn't have a good picture until that person declined. And one of the things that I want to do is, it's a personal project, is can we bring people from the community to have those, celebrate life while people are doing well, as opposed when they...
Makes perfect sense.
When they're, fall ill or, whatever it may be. But
makes perfect sense. We only have a couple of minutes. I just want to ask, I just want to get a plug in here for you. You just moved in a new space at 100 Cummings. What's the suite?
212D.
212D.
So right down the hall from the Registry of Deeds.
Right down the hall from the Registry of Deeds. And I know that the Greater Beverly Chamber of Commerce is having a ribbon cutting for you, I think Friday morning.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. What time is that?
9 a.m.
9 a.m. So anybody who happens to be around Cummings, Friday morning around 9 o'clock-ish, please walk into 100 Cummings, 212D like David, and say hello to Carlos and his team over at his place. One quick question. I'm gonna need a real quick answer because we got to wrap up. But a lot of people doing headshots. What makes you unique with what you do?
It's the experience. I mean, AI can do great things today. They can take pictures, but they cannot generate natural expressions. I mean, I'm all about human interaction, and I think human interaction what brings best in people.
Yep.
And my skill set is about having a conversation like you and I are now, and capturing that great Mike smile that he's giving me right now.
Yeah. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Carlos. We're going to wrap up at this point, and I want to thank you so much for joining us. You've really been quite a guest. A lot of times we have to kind of fill in, not a lot of times, but sometimes fill in some areas, but you just kind of took it off, and you just did a great job. And it's been a real pleasure getting to know who you are and your background and where you're from.
Yeah, good luck with your business. That's exciting.
Thank
Absolutely.
You, Mike. Thank you,
and remember, 100 Cummings, 212D, 9 o'clock Friday morning. For those of you that are around, Mike, it's always a pleasure. And for those of you that are looking for more information about the Beverly Rotary Club, please visit our site, beverlyrotaryclub.com. Thank you for joining us.